Completing Shadow of War took a little longer than expected. I promised myself I'd do it before making this video. Now here I am 3 days later, having done nothing but the game. It's gone. It's over. This game, without any DLC, is still a lot of game. To reach the end of the campaign, and to beat all of the proper missions, it took me 43 hours of efficiently running between objectives. You see, I've had my fill of the sidetracking with Shadow of Mordor already. If I had to describe this game to somebody who hasn't played it, this is how I'd do it. Shadow of War doesn't make any sense. You play as an undead guy with a ghostly companion and can make friends with orcs. You don't take full damage, you can teleport, parkour and ride all kinds of weird creatures. At one point you team up with a tree to fight a Balrog. It's an open-ended game, but at the same time, it isn't. And it's sort of Lord of the Rings, but not in any of the ways that you'd initially want for it to be. And there are orcs, but they're flamboyant and often comical characters that don't belong in the movies. So, the game doesn't make sense, and it isn't like what you'd expect for it to be. Stop asking questions about why it is the way it is, and just appreciate that what it is works. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a cocktail of all the fun bits from other games with a nifty nemesis system thrown in to give it all purpose. Now, the game has had a lot of criticism from its heavy emphasis on DLC and microtransactions. Among other things, the worry was that these would be shoved in your face at every moment, that the gameplay would be manipulated to encourage you to spend real money on stuff to advance the game, and that without these things, the game would feel bare and empty. I bought the cheapest edition of the game and set out to see if it suffered from this. Hell, I even disabled any of the DLC that came with it, though I did download the free 4K movies and texture packs, which bloat the installation size to a stonking 103 gigabytes. But how big does the game feel? To put it simply, it's massive. I can only really compare it to its predecessor, Shadow of Mordor. That game and its 2 world hubs kept me entertained for over 60 hours. Shadow of War, on the other hand, has 5 hubs, each as large as the ones from the first game, and each with a very unique feel to them. Shadow of War is so big that it makes the first game look like a training level. The minute-by-minute gameplay is similar, but this sequel has added a lot of welcome long-term features that give your actions purpose long after the first game ran out of steam. You think you've beaten it, then suddenly it zooms out another level and you feel like a small fish in a big pond again, overwhelmed by a flood of new features and goals, many of which blur the line between scripted and naturally occurring gameplay. Procedurally generated missions are something of a dirty word, especially if you're used to them from Skyrim. Though with this game, they serve as a welcome excuse to mess about with a particular gameplay element, or simply to slaughter hundreds of orcs. Plus, they reward you with things that do help to kit out your character with powerful items. So these missions never feel like wasted time, more as a focused method to obtain what you would have done some other way otherwise. In fact, I think this is the game's recipe for success. Its procedurally generated stuff feels just as good as its handcrafted stuff. I still don't know how they've managed the orc bosses. Each is so unique and memorable, and there seem to be literally hundreds of them, each with hundreds of unique lines. Their names seem procedurally generated at first, but they soon make sense when you encounter them. The orc called Goodfink uses long and mensa words, but pronounces them wrong. Ghoul lover? Yep, he definitely loves them ghouls. And so on. They all display so much character and personality that it seems a shame to kill them. Hang around a hub for long enough and you can't help but grow fond of some, and annoyed of others, especially that survivor one who can apparently come back from having his head lopped off. Oh yes, heads like to go flying in this game. Limbs get dismembered and the ragdoll physics are hilariously over the top. I had to talk about this just to give you guys some time to appreciate this wonderful ragdoll montage that I collected from my time with this game, which by now I'm sure you can tell I'm a fan of. But while the bulk of my experience was good, there were some niggles both ends of it. The first impressions actually weren't that good. I don't like signing scary looking terms of services for what will be, for me, a single player experience. Yes game, you can monitor my PC every time I use you. Yes, your friends can as well. Yes, I would like to be treated like a criminal, thank you. And so on. Next was the control screen, which was utterly overwhelming. You think that Arma 3's is bad? This is worse. This is the first time I've wished that I had more than 100 keys on my keyboard, since most buttons started serving double, triple or quadruple functions. You change one and suddenly it causes a chain reaction across the others. I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to escape this screen. The graphics menu is awesome. There are a lot of things to mess about with, and it helpfully tells you what each option does in a deliciously concise manner. I'm disappointed that there's no field of view. There were moments that I feel it's too zoomed in for me. This game is the first I've had that has a dynamic resolution scaler. This is a miracle feature. It automatically and instantly lowers your resolution to keep your frame rate high, and it does an excellent job. All of this can be customised in the options menu, and you can even disable it, though I don't know why you'd want to. I ran at 4K for a crisp, clear HUD. The game itself certainly wasn't at 4K much of the time, occasionally plummeting to 240p for a second or so if I took a screenshot or alt-tabbed or whatever. But most of the time it hovered between Full HD and 4K, and meant I didn't have to bother much about fine-tuning the settings for optimal performance. More games need this. The cutscenes were beautiful in 4K. I tried watching as much as I could, but sadly I do get bored quickly and then skip them to get onto the gameplay. But there's plenty of stuff to watch if you're into that kind of thing. Shadow of Mordor kind of dropped you into a world and you had to find the story. But with this game I got the impression that it was a lot more story driven, which I liked as a tool to progress through the world. I don't know what it is about Talion, but I don't like the way he looks as much as in the first game. I think it's his hair. It's too brown. But I can't fault the voice acting. He sounds like the love child of Aragorn and Boromir. He's in his element when he's worrying about the doom of mankind and ancient curses, and it really got me into the Lord of the Rings mood. Shelob, not so much. This beautiful spider transforms into a generic, seductive, boring old young woman who spends 100% of her screen time waltzing about and groping at your character. It feels really forced, made me cringe, and got me to skip quite a lot of the cutscenes. So admittedly I don't really know what was going on here. I don't care either, though there is a dank bit where Talion gets told off by both his friend and his enemy for doing the right thing, and ends up sitting there looking sorry for himself. I'm not a fan of tutorials in games, and in a way, the whole of Shadow of War feels like one, since it's always introducing new elements and telling you what to do. But I don't mind it too much since you're given quite a bit of freedom to enjoy the gameplay at any point before having to continue. Give me this over Skyrim's unskippable intro any day. Shadow of Mordor felt remarkably alive for a game world. Shadow of War builds on this further. If you're old enough to remember the PlayStation 1 era, you'll know that it was very lonely. You seldom had people on your side and it was generally you versus the world. Well, this game makes the first one feel like that. This time I really enjoyed having Gondorian soldiers fighting alongside me, and their cities added a lot of character to the environments, which in the first game were just bland chunks of Middle Earth. But of course, as nice as the humans are, the real appeal of this game lies with the orcs, which I've already said are awesome. The variety the devs have come up with is excellent and has caused me to go out of my way a few times just to see what they're like. Some can seem a little silly, but the humour is right down my street and doesn't detract from the gameplay at all.
I don't know when we'll meet again, but I'll be ready and you'll be deady.
It's somewhat scary how appealing some of these heartless killers can be. The stakes are raised as the game progresses, eventually leading to the famed sieges that I'm sure you've all seen by now. They are a joy to behold and better executed than I could have hoped for. Not since Mount & Blade has a game so successfully blended large-scale warfare with the intimacy of knowing individuals from both sides, and never before has it been done with this level of polish and balance. You can spend many happy hours attacking and defending, as well as choosing the role you wish to play in these battles themselves. You hold enough power to determine the outcome, but not enough to feel invincible. It's masterfully done and combines everything I enjoyed from the first game into something that, with hindsight, is so obviously a good idea. But even an idea as good as this one can be overdone, and it really is. This is my first major criticism of the game. There comes a point where you have to endure literally dozens of these sieges, each a little harder than the last. You have to do this to reach the official end of the game, and the repetition will get to you long before you reach it. For each siege you have to grind the level of your followers up in the fighting pits. This arena puts one of your prize orcs against a foe, chosen from 3 difficulty levels. Every one of these arena fights can take up to 3 minutes, and each time your orcs risk dying and you have to start over. Oh, and you're forced to watch them, much like a cutscene. Like the sieges themselves, this system isn't a bad idea. The fights themselves are entertaining to watch. It's only spoiled by being necessary to do. There is no skipping of these sequences. You're talking maybe up to half an hour of watching combat before every siege. Not even playing. Just watching what can be a frustratingly slow and long-winded process. For a game that has packed so much gameplay into every hour leading up to this point, this change in pace is jarring and very out of character. And the game expects more from you than that. You could level up as many orcs as you want, but they might still not be able to take part in a siege because they're off hunting or something instead. I kid you not. You have to run across the world to find them, help them beat whatever they're doing, and then get everybody ready for the siege before another runs off. I mean, you could always skip time instead, but then there's always a risk that they'll die without your help doing whatever it is that they're doing. And sometimes, after all of this, if your orcs are a high enough level, then they may decide that they don't need you anymore, leaving your army completely and by backstabbing you at some inconvenient moment. Early on in the game, this kind of stuff is cool, but later on, when there's so much work to be done, this kind of micromanagement simply isn't welcome or fun. The saddest thing is how easy these things would have been to fix. Have a button that skips the arena fights, to bulk sell items you don't need, to fast travel to aid your followers, or a way to shorten the orc intro cinematics. I do love these, but you may see over a dozen of them in a single siege. There comes a point where you stop caring about individual orcs and just want to get on with the sieges. In fact, why not make these sieges optional as well by putting them after the game's end? I know that technically this would change nothing. The content would remain the same. It would just bring the official end of the game forward a bit. But psychologically, having a pop-up telling me that I've beaten the campaign and am now free to play the sieges as I please is 1,000 times better than turning these fun features into necessary chores for those who want to beat the game. Surely the devs must have thought of this when making the game. And while we're on it, they should have done something similar with the Return of the King movie. Have it fade to black after the coronation scene, show the word epilogue, and then move on to all of the other endings. Once again, no real difference to what is actually there, but psychologically it would make a difference and helps distance this boring closure stuff from the rest of the movie, which was awesome. Oh, and what's this Shadow of War? How is this a yes-no option? One leads to a menu screen, the other almost certain peril. This time I chose the wrong option. Luckily I was able to beat it still, but later on these battles do get hard and it's nice to have orcs on your team who can go toe to toe with the enemies without keeling over almost instantly and requiring you to heal them before they bleed out and die forever. Which brings me to perhaps the most frustrating thing I've ever encountered in a computer game, ever. And I've played CSGO matchmaking. You see, to target somebody, to take control or to heal them, you look in their general direction and press a button. Talion then takes a second or so to perform this action before it's complete. Problem is, in a hectic siege, he always targets the wrong person. And by the time he finally gets the right one, no doubt the action will be interrupted by somebody coming over and stabbing him or something. And then you miss your chance and your teammate bleeds out or whatever. It's butt-clenchingly, eye-wateringly, mouth-cursingly annoying. This extends to the general gameplay as well. There are too many interactive ledges. You'll try to guide Talion to one place and he'll unexpectedly leap the other way. I'd say this happens about 3 to 4 times a minute, and it does my head in, especially when he chooses to jump into a crowd of orcs or to fail the mission for you in some way. I'm in a shared house. I shout and swear and then feel really embarrassed about it because people outside my room can hear. I've tried replacing naughty words with made up ones, but then I just sound silly. Over time these made up words have evolved and, mostly thanks to this game, I now have a whole made up language for swearing. I'm sure some language teacher somewhere would be fascinated by this creation of mine. A lot of these made up swear words sound awfully like politicians I don't like. It's a shame that this game suffers from these problems because it gets so much of it right, and shows it can too. Early on in the game, I was frustrated by how I had to manually pick up every item of loot dropped by enemies. But then, my character got an upgrade that did this instantly and automatically. The developers have shown that they care about this stuff, which makes the absence of other features even more odd. If only there was a way of skipping the micromanaged orc side quests. If only I could get powerful followers without the grind. If only my team could be taken care of for me so that I can finally focus on the fighting. Oh wait, there is a way. You can use the in-game market to buy powerful items and orcs to help you to bypass the grind. You can literally pay them more money to experience less of the game. Of course, I didn't do this. I would hate to reward such greedy, obvious behaviour. I mean, I looked at the market out of curiosity, just to see how much they want to extort you for this kind of privilege. I felt dirty just for looking, honestly. It's a feature that has been met with a lot of controversy, and I'm going to add to this in my own controversial way. I like to deal in absolutes, to sift through the evidence and to come up with a conclusion that can't be contested. And yet, I can't do this with microtransactions. I can list my many reasons for hating them. They're greedy, obvious and lazy money grabs. They prey on the vulnerable, they commercialise an art form that I support, and I've known of an era before they were a thing. But, at the same time, I know they're here to stay and that they were never intended for players like me in the first place. They will feature microtransactions because it's cheap and easy to do, and because some people do buy them. Sadly, all of my favourite games now sport these. What do? Do I give up gaming despite the enjoyment I get from it? No, I find a way of justifying my purchases. With Shadow of War, it's easy. Despite the company's moral bankruptcy and how launch day DLC shows that bits were lopped off to be sold as extras, what I am getting is still a game's worth, a very decent product, provided I remain ignorant of what I'm missing out on. The base game is unquestionably larger and better than the first game. For the price of what I used to pay for a PlayStation 1 game, I'm getting a lot more for my money with Shadow of War. If you genuinely would have bought this game were it not for the DLC, then good for you. I respect that. But to all those people who had no intention of buying it in the first place, who want to take the moral high ground just to justify being a dick to me in the comments section, grow up and go away. I was a huge fan of Shadow of Mordor, and I'll be damned if I miss out on what is my most anticipated game of the year, especially since it's turned out to be worth the wait. But I do worry about microtransactions and the bearing that they'll have on our games. I'll give it to this game. They weren't intrusive. As in, like, it's not directly popping up to remind you that they exist. And the developers say this game was designed and balanced without microtransactions in mind. I like to imagine the team behind Shadow of War are just as annoyed as we are when DLC is shoehorned in last minute, disrupting the balance of their well-crafted game. And yet, I can't help but question some of the sloppy decisions in the game's later stages, when the first half got it all so perfect. How can we know what impact microtransactions have had when the very foundations of this game seem so perfectly designed for their use? The line between game and gambling is getting more blurred by the year. I got 3 drops in this game that required me to access the market to open. I haven't, and don't even know what I'd have gotten if I did, because this kind of oversteps my boundary that I'm happy with. I would hate to be tempted, but I know as well as anyone that a good game is addictive by nature. It's a prime candidate for this kind of stuff. But at the same time, it goes directly against the point of the game in the first place. Being a fan of Final Fantasy, I've done my share of grinding. And done correctly, it adds a lot to the experience. You have time to anticipate what's coming next. You can justify just one more go, knowing that it will help your game in the long run. Gradually honing your leveling method is a thing to be proud of, and it's usually the memory of the game that sticks with me the longest. So why would you pay money to skip this? What reason would developers have for adding this, if not greed? Completing a game used to be an achievement, a thing to be proud of, and a testament to your skill as a gamer. Now it seems you can just bypass all this and pay to win. Paying for this kind of stuff is pretty much telling the devs that you're incompetent, lazy, or just disinterested in playing the game. And that's why I won't be doing it. Shadow of War is an excellent game, marred by stupid politics and greed. It's a modern game in every sense of the word. I've enjoyed it, but it does leave me with some worrying questions regarding the future of the industry. I'll end this video on a completely relevant story. I once went to a theme park that was giving away a free CD for anybody who rode all of the rides and got them stamped off on the ticket. The problem was, one of those rides got you super wet. But I wanted that CD. I rode it, got soaked, then went off to stamp my ticket. My dad simply walked around the exit barrier and got his stamp too without going on the ride. We both got the CD. The same CD. The difference was what we did to get there. My dad cheated and didn't deserve it. And I, having done it right, spent the day walking around in wet pants.